Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and in today's video we are heading back to the design center. So if you're like me, you weren't quite sure what it was that you were looking for going in, you were excited about the experience, and after picking some things out, looking over everything, you're left feeling just very unsure if what you've picked is what's right for you. Now, hopefully you're very confident in absolutely everything you've chosen, you know your design style going in, that way you don't run into these issues. But there are definitely those of us who are just completely not sure going in, sometimes still not sure coming out either. So this is an extension of my last video on the design center, which I will leave a link to right here, just going over some more tips, strategies, ways of thinking to get you to know for sure that what you've picked out is going to work for you. If that sounds good, keep on watching. Be sure to give this video a like, leave me a comment below, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get going. I'll show you some of the pictures from what I initially picked out to what we're actually going to end up with in the house. It's very different. It is very different. I changed so much from that first visit to the last one, and thankfully I had the time to do so. Hopefully, again, this is something that you can do all at once or with a reasonable time frame. Now, hopefully you don't have to wait the months and months that I've had to in order to get through the initial design center visit all the way up to when they've actually broken ground, which is when they cannot change anything else. So I'm kind of torn. It's nice that I had so much time to change my mind, but at the same time, we're obviously very far behind schedule and it's going to take a couple more months from now, and we were hoping to have been in already a couple months ago. So I'm choosing to look at the positives here, that I'm going to end up with the house that really works much better for our design style instead of what I initially thought going in. So I'll show you some of those pictures of all of those changes, but basically, how did I know that going from this to this is something that was going to work for me? If you have these kind of questions, here we go. So hopefully you've watched that first video and you have a better handle on what it is that you like. But if you're still feeling unsure, my first thing to do is going to be, when in doubt, go neutral. Neutrals are timeless, they are classic, and it's just something that's going to be a lot easier to transition throughout your life, throughout the years, hopefully, that you'll be in your home, as opposed to some of those more trendy options. So I'm going to be picking on gray quite a lot in this video. It's been so popular the last couple of years, so it's something that's kind of an easy example here. If it's something that you have, that you love, or that you are going for, and you are sure about that, just keep in mind, these are my opinions. Initially, we were going with that gray floor. Not only that, I was looking at, gray paint on the walls, gray furniture, gray rugs. It was going to be gray overload. But at the same time, gray is very trendy, or was very trendy. We're seeing that kind of fade already. It was really big for like 10 years or so. And again, it'll probably come back around. Trends just have a habit of going in and out. But when I'm talking about neutrals, I'm looking more at something like, say, your white kitchen. So I know that white kitchens have been also a little bit trendy, and maybe people are sick of seeing them. They're overdone, they're everywhere, but there's a reason for that. They are, again, timeless. A clean white kitchen is not something that's going to go out of style per se. It might not be as popular as it once was, but it's still a very clean slate. Having a very clean, bright looking kitchen is not something that you're going to regret. Alongside with gray, we've seen a lot of navy blue come in. I feel like navy blue seems to be another kind of neutral-ish color that people are choosing, and I've seen it a lot. I'm not personally a big fan of navy blue anymore. I've definitely had a lot of blue in the past, which is something we'll talk about in another video. But again, think about how you're going to feel about these things, not just right now. How will you feel about it in 5 years, in 10 years? Hopefully you're going to be in this home for a long time, or if you are moving, you want to look at something like the resale value. Expanding out into greens, if we're looking at all of the colors of the year this year, most of them are in that green category. They are huge right now. We're seeing it all over, not only paint in the walls, but also in things like your kitchen cabinets. Now, same thing here. It looks great right now. Will it look great soon? Sometimes these trends are so transitional. It's like 2 years later and it's already done. I don't know about you, but if I'm investing in something like cabinetry, which I'm hoping to have pretty much forever, I don't want it to be something that I'm going to feel was a mistake that quickly. You can also think of neutral in things like your backsplash or your tile. Sometimes that really funky, fun, bold pattern is something that catches your eye and you are so in love with, but how will you feel about that, especially paired with, say, that green cabinet or that navy blue cabinet? These are things that are harder to transition out of later, so it's just something to think about. Going a little bit more on the safe side, I don't want to say on the boring side, but having that more neutral canvas is going to help you transition to every other style you could possibly have later on. So if you're looking to commit to color, just keep in mind you're probably committing to also changing that with the times. So just something to think about when you do put in that brighter, bolder, or more aggressive color. The second thing is, when in doubt, stick with natural. Nature is always in style. It's been here forever. It will continue to be here forever. So don't mean to pick on those gray floors again, but when you're looking at a gray hardwood floor, typically you don't get them in hardwood. You have to go towards an LVP, some type of vinyl, some type of other flooring that is not quite true hardwood. So while this is the flooring that I initially picked out, the more I looked at it, first of all, it started to make me a little bit sad. It looks like all of the color was sapped out of it, like took the contrast and just pushed it all the way down, or put some type of, black and white filter over it. It just looked so devoid of warmth, which is something that really got me thinking that maybe this isn't the right thing for me. But also, when you're thinking about putting that in your home, you know that that's not a color that is found naturally, so you also know that it is fake. So that doesn't bother everybody, and that's perfectly fine. But having that kind of going in your mind that it's not real, there's just something about that. So I am not saying that, LVP is bad and hardwood floors are the way to go. I actually am not a big fan of hardwood floors, which is something I'll discuss later. And we are getting LVP in our house, but we're getting it in a color that you actually can find in nature. So it's not like you're trying to be tricky with anybody or trying to fool anybody. It's just something that people pick up on kind of subconsciously. So again, nature is always in style. If you're not sure, if you feel like maybe you've gone too far or maybe you're having some doubts, bringing things back to nature tends to help. The next thing is, if you are looking to go bold, maybe keep it to a smaller area or somewhere that if you do fall out of love with it, it's easier to fix. So if you have this bright, funky floor tile that you love right now, a powder room might be the best place for it. It's smaller, you can kind of have a little bit more fun in a powder room anyway. They can always just kind of be a little bit more on that trendy side because, again, not as big of an area, so it's much easier to customize as you go. Same thing with like a backsplash. If you find something that you like a lot, but maybe you're not quite committed to it in your entire kitchen, if you do have a separate bar area, butler's pantry, wet bar in the basement type situation, maybe that's where you do that. It's a little bit more niche, a little bit smaller. So again, it'll be easier to change out if you do feel like you had fun, but it's had its time and you want to come on to the next thing. If you've got something like hardware, which is again a little bit out there, but it's something fun and it makes you happy, hardware is so easy to change. It might get a little bit pricey at sometimes, but in general, it's a pretty cheap and safe option. So have some fun, go bold, go with that trend, and see if you like it. Maybe it lasts a couple years, and by then it will already have paid for itself. So then when you do switch it out, you can have something, again, you can go with the next trend, you can go with something a little bit more classic. It's totally up to you at that point, and it won't break the bank, which I think we can all appreciate. Now, this is not saying to not go bold somewhere else. So the next tip is basically, if it is something that you know, and I'm saying in your gut, in your heart, you've known this for years, you've just been waiting to get to that next step in your life where you can make your dream a reality, go bold on something like, say, your countertop. So something like this type of marble with these huge lines that is so in right now, and they can be very, very gorgeous. They are definitely a huge statement piece. If you know that that is something that you are going for, just go all in. Now, I think that this type of marble is something that we're going to look back on in 10 or 20 years and think, oh, that is a very 2020s. We are dating this house with that huge marble. But again, it is a natural stone. It's just a very different look to it. So you could almost put this in the category of going back to nature. Again, natural stone is something that is always going to be in. It just might kind of ebb and flow. So we'll see. Might be right, might be wrong. But if you know that that's something that you're looking for, that's the time when you should go for it. And this last point is definitely one that I've brought up before in the last video. Do your research. Don't only do it beforehand, but do it again when you get home and you have all your options. Go back through everything and think about how it's going to come together as a whole. It's kind of easy to get pigeonholed into how things are going to look one-on-one, how maybe this room is going to look opposed to that room, but you want to think about your house as an entire unit. You can have some different fun with, say, the powder room like we talked about earlier, but it's still, you want it to be cohesive, which is something we've talked about in another video I'll link to right up here for you. So now I want to go over some of the pictures of, again, what I chose beforehand during my first visit. Kind of kept it through some of my second visit. I went back 4 or 5 times. I think it was 4 total, but changed so much. How did we get from here to here, and kind of what happened along the way? First up again are these gray floors. I really was going for that really modern, contemporary, very clean lined look that I think is very, very pretty. Here are some pictures of it to kind of show you initially what it was that I was thinking about, and it does not work for me. I really thought that it's something that I could be, but when I go back to really being honest with myself, it's just not who I am. Now, when I was poring over these pictures, the million times after that first design appointment, I found that I kept going back to Pinterest, Google, trying to see how this was all going to look together to comfort myself that it was going to be okay. And that should have set off a red flag, that I had to keep going back, like, is it going to be okay? I feel like something's wrong, something's off, something's not going to work. Is this me? Is it not? I'm not sure. If you're feeling like that, that should send a signal to you that maybe something isn't quite right. But I've been going through a lot of, again, Pinterest, Google, YouTube, going through a bunch of different decor and design style videos, and I found myself really drawn to this Scandinavian decor style. Very, very different from what I'd looked at before. This is all about those light woods. It's all about that bright airiness, a little bit more minimalistic, and it absolutely speaks to me. I am head over heels for this. So I was scrolling through Pinterest one day, again, probably trying to make myself feel better about my gray floors and some of the other cabinetry choices and all of that, and I came across this picture. It is something that is so small, but as soon as I saw this, I knew I had to change the floors. This is what I wanted. It just felt right. It felt like part of a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and then I kept searching for more and more. So if you go through, you can see I have this entire blonde wood floor section, and it just makes my heart happy to see this. So luckily, again, I've had the time, luckily, unluckily, kind of gotta weigh the pros and cons here. Having all these delays gave me that time to go back and change so much. Now this set off a cascade of changing some other items as well. A lot of this black, hardware, sink, all of that, we are keeping, and I think they are going to look great. I love a black accent. It's not something that, at the time I thought was kind of a bold choice for me. It's not something I'd had before, but I thought, okay, we're gonna take a shot here, and now I'm fully invested in it. And I realized that the reason I was okay kind of like taking that chance was because it is something that's right for me. I have not once questioned whether or not the black faucet, the black hardware, is going to be something that I'm going to be nervous about when we actually see it all come together, or something I'm going to want to change out later. I actually ended up expanding it into more places, and I am so excited to see it. So you can see where those kind of gut instincts really start to kick in here. You know more than you give yourself credit for, so just keep that in mind. Listen to yourself. This dark cabinetry is something that I knew I wanted a two-tone, but I didn't know how dark we were really committing to. So I still think this is very pretty. I still think it could possibly work, but again, those kind of alarm bells were going off that this is going to be too dark and I'm not going to like it. One of the things that living in this apartment that I talk about way too much that is dark, what I've really learned is just to go with the light. So get the extra windows if you can. Go a little bit lighter, because you can always take down the light by adjusting your lighting, by closing the curtains, by closing the blinds. But if you don't have those light options to begin with, it's really hard to bring in the light. Now, while I don't see any of those issues coming up in the new home, except for one place, I actually realized that we didn't put the extra windows in my office. I'm really sad about that. It is something that I completely overlooked that I thought we had done until the structure was going up, and I was like, oh. I guess we didn't do that. So that's going to be a very expensive project later on. I do plan on having windows there at some point. What are you going to do? But again, for me, I just chose to go with those lighter options. I would rather go a little bit more neutral. I want to think of the home structure more as a canvas that I can then add in different decor styles, different colors, textures, all of that with the furniture, with the decor, with all of the other items that are going into the house. It's going to be so much easier to switch out, say, a couch or a chair or a lamp or a vase than the cabinets or the countertops. With our gray floors, that meant the stairs were going to have to be very dark. They were with, oh gosh, what was it? A red oak or something like that. I believe it was red oak. Basically, the stain for gray would always come through as pink because they can't quite get the color to set right. So even though we're having LVP on the floors, you do real wood for the stairs. So the color was never going to match. So rather than having it look like we tried and failed to match it, we went way dark on the stairs, which again, something that kind of kept me up at night. So I wanted the ability to go with a stair color that was going to more closely match with the floors, but also something that just didn't feel dark and heavy because that's just not my vibe. And then of course, gray carpeting as well. There was so much gray. There was just going to be, I cannot be more thankful that this is not the end result that I'm going to have. We also initially went with a navy blue door. Again, blue, it just seems like a safe color. It's something that I've always gravitated towards in the past because you should have color and why not blue? But it's not something that I really like, and I will go on a blue rant at some point, so stay tuned for that. But we went with a black door now, and I am so excited to see that beautiful contrast. Black is still very neutral. It's going to be seen throughout the home, so it's something that just coming up to the door, you kind of start to get an idea of the feel of the interior as well. Switching up the tile, same thing, it was going to be gray. So going with a little bit lighter, more neutral, a little bit more warmth, is going to be something that we're going to be happy with. So looking back through, again, our end result from the last visit compared to our first, quite different, extremely different vibes, and again, just so much happier at this point in time. I'm now at a point where I cannot wait to see it all come together rather than I hope it looks good when it all comes together. And that's one of those main differences that you'll find when you want to know if something is going to be right for you or not. So that is it for this week. I do hope that this was helpful. If you're going through this yourself now, if you're feeling any of those kind of red flag, alarms going off, go back through, look at these tips again. Pinterest is your best friend, and just do what you have to do to get yourself in that better mind space. If you did find this helpful, go ahead, give this video a like, leave me a comment below, let me know what you're working on yourself, subscribe, and again, hit that notification bell. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Until next time, bye.